If you guys have not seen the movie Brightburn, there will be spoilers for this, so click away if you intend to see it or have not seen it and don't want spoilers. So after having watched Brightburn, you realize that this kid is basically Superman when he was little, and if he decided to be a killer, to use his powers for bad. We see that he tries to be a good kid, he tries to do good, he even warns people before he does what he's going to do. However, he already has it in his mind that he is superior, which he is, so you can't really blame him for behaving the way he does. Just like we can't blame humans for behaving like they're superior when they step on ants. What would have happened if Superman came into his universe and met Brandon Breyer? The first thing that probably would have happened was Superman would realize very quickly that this kid needs to be stopped. Superman is not the type that would kill this kid. As a matter of fact, because of the current circumstance, Superman would realize that this kid is a version of himself, if not himself from an alternate universe. He would be so saddened by what this kid has done. Let's say that Superman meets Brandon Breyer at the end of the movie's events when he takes down the plane. So Brandon Breyer had already killed all those people and committed those awful crimes. There is no way that someone can hold Brandon Breyer. He's very strong, but at that time, at least from the events of the movie and at the age Brandon Breyer is, it's totally obvious that he is nowhere near as strong as Superman. Even though he is still small, he is still a juvenile version of Superman, and his powers are not totally throttled to their full potential the way that Superman's powers are. So Superman could definitely beat him in a fight, but they have the same powers. You see, the problem with Brandon Breyer, especially at a male at his age, is that he has no authoritative figure. And with males or with members of any species, it seems, with a lot of them, especially mammals and creatures that kind of fall close to that category, they need to see a showmanship of power. If someone else can't protect them, then they're not going to respect that person. If someone else is so much weaker than they are and they cannot discipline them accordingly, then the person who has all the power is not going to respect the weaker person. It's kind of like those really fat nutritionists that are telling you how to be healthy and how to be fit, and you're looking at them and they look like a gigantic flesh bubble. You're not going to take what they say seriously unless you're very gullible. Superman would show up, maybe in costume, maybe not, to try and stop Brandon. Brandon, seeing Superman, would scoff and warn him first before telling him to get out of the way. Superman would try to talk to him, Brandon would probably not listen, and Superman would grab him by the shoulder in a big brother type of way, not to hurt him or anything. Brandon would probably not move, make himself really heavy and stationary, or he would try to beat Superman away, and it would be so awesome if he tries to use his powers to knock Superman back, only to hurt himself or to find that Superman is immovable. Brandon would probably quickly gasp and look up at Superman. At this point in time, Superman would probably either tell him that he's just like him, or it would be implied, or Superman could go the overkill mode and just fly somewhere high with Brandon. After flying to a mountaintop, he would sit Brandon down and talk to him. At this point, Brandon would be so flabbergasted and relieved that there's somebody else like him. Superman would assure Brandon that he's not going to hurt him, but he would also school him as a saying that what he's doing is wrong, and he understands because there was no one there to guide him, and he's sorry that he had to be alone as he discovered his powers. For one thing, because Brandon is a kid, Superman would see him as a lost soul, especially being exactly like him, so he wouldn't totally fault the kid. He wouldn't look at him as a villain. I think Superman would take him under his wing, tell him that he has to go dark for a while, just go under the radar, and then Superman would train him. Brandon Breyer would listen to him because he'd realize very quickly that Superman is much stronger. Having an actual father figure who's just like him and understands where he came from, who's basically the same species, would make Brandon respect him. He lost respect for his human father because he saw himself as more superior than human beings. Brandon naturally wants to do good. I believe that there is still good inside him. He even told his mom that. But seeing Superman as a superior being to him now, having someone to answer to, it would put him in his place. The difference between Superman and Brandon is that he feels remorse. And after spending quite some time teaching Brandon why he should feel for human life, why he should feel remorse, and how to really adequately use his powers properly, Brandon's character would develop and change, and then he would start to feel horrible terrible about what he did to his parents. It wouldn't come overnight, it wouldn't come naturally, because as a kid, Brandon had already been set in that way, but he's still very young and impressionable. He just needed a father figure to look up to. Because he deeply respects Superman, he would feel so hurt knowing that he disappointed him. Superman would train him and personality and his powers. Now, the elephant in the room would still be there. Superman didn't have any message telling him to take the world. His parents sent him to Earth to protect him, to hide. Brandon's directives were specifically to take over Earth. Of course, Brandon would ask these questions of Kal-El as to what this means. He would also ask that if this is who his people are, then why shouldn't he listen to them? And why should he listen to Kal-El? Our popular DC hero would want to get to the bottom of that, and he would vow that they would discover that together. Here's the underlying thing. Based on the end of Brightburn, there are others out there like Brandon, obviously. As said in the previous video that I did of the review, if they were sending down pods with babies to infiltrate the planet, yes, as I said, plural, they're not gonna just send one, just in case somebody had the bright idea to take a shard and stab it through the baby's head. They would send several throughout the world. This is only one little region, and while it is possible that Brandon could take the world himself and kill everybody and everyone in sight, do you think that the people who sent him there want to take that chance that they just send one? They would send several around the world to get the job done as quickly as possible. Now, why they would wait till the kids are 12 years old, maybe to make them comfortable or something, I have no idea. They basically are like terrorists, where they just plant them and then when they're ripe for the picking, they activate them. Superman would either throw the ship in outer space or destroy it, or he would use it as a method to find out where Brandon came from. Obviously, whoever sent Brandon there does not have goodwill for the planet, and that goes directly against Superman's principles. Now, knowing this about his origin, would Brandon still follow Kal-El? Probably he would, because Superman is the first father figure-like, big brother-like person that he's met with his superpowers. So he'd form an attachment to him and a deep respect for him. Chances are, because of that respect and that bond, he would not want to turn against Superman. Now, if we discovered later at some point that Brandon's real father comes to Earth and exposes who he is, that may prove to be complicated because he's Brandon's real father, and then he may have to fight Superman and subdue him to show his son that he is the one to be followed and respected. There would be even more questions that would crop up from Brandon's end as to why his father and mother sent him there in this dangerous world alone. Why did they use him? Why didn't they come themselves? I mean, if there are adult versions of Brandon that can do the same thing that he does, or probably even better, why wouldn't they all just come themselves? But as for the scenario with Superman meeting the Brightburn kid, Brandon Breyer, he would bond with Superman. He would respect him. If he did try to fight Superman initially, he would lose, and he would realize that this is somebody like him, and he can trust this person, he can depend on this person, because it's all a kid needs. If a kid doesn't feel like he can trust anyone, or anyone's got his back or is taking care of him, he's not going to respect authority at all. Superman would be that accountability, he would be that authority figure. The one and only person on the face of the planet that would bust his ass if he did something wrong. He would teach him to control his anger, which Brandon does have a problem with. It is so easy when you have superpowers and someone is insulting you or shoving you around to use your powers and teach them a lesson. This would be annoying for Brandon because he would want to use his powers, and it would be very hard for him not to, especially given what he's been doing this whole time Superman wasn't around. That's probably why Superman would take him away from civilization first, or to some remote place just like in Man of Steel on an oil rig or something. Of course they can't bring kids there, but somewhere similar to that where he could teach him in a small town how to behave with other people, how to tone down the God complex. It would take a lot of positive reinforcement, and it would take a lot of mental training for Brandon to not want to be a freaking killer. But again, as long as there's accountability and someone to keep him in check, that wouldn't be a problem. Also, showing Brandon that he can be killed would be an important factor, because as Superman would probably say, everyone has their kryptonite. You know what I wonder? If Superman came from out of his universe and went into Brandon's universe, kryptonite wouldn't exist in Brandon's universe. But since they're essentially the same character in an alternate universe, would Brandon's ship affect Superman? That's a good question. Anyways, guys, that's it. What do you think would happen in that scenario if Brightburn's Brandon Breyer were to meet Superman's Clark Kent? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. This has been Altiori. You ask, we answer.